Hello. This is our map assignment number two for meditation and art. My name is Joseph Jones Fisher or Seth Fisher.
And my name's Axel Didick.
Um, and what we're doing in this assignment is it's a little bit complex to explain, so we'll just kind of get into it and you guys will get a feel for it as we are going through it. So
So for
you can introduce your artist for the assignment first.
all right, so the artist that I chose is Slowdive, and the reason I chose them is they've always been like some artists that I go to when I'm going to relax or um kind of like thinking in a different headspace where I can sit and think deeply. And before this class, I've never really thought of their music as contemplated, but once we started like talking about attention and presence, I realized that their music has always put me into that kind of state.
Mhm.
So I picked them not because they've been known to practice meditation officially, but it's always felt contemplative to me after
Yeah.
realizing the definition.
Okay. Yeah, and the artist that I did was I did Michael Jackson, and I did something a little bit different for mine also because I didn't focus as much on his music as much as his performance, so his dancing and that kind of stuff, which if you know anything about Michael Jackson, that's something he was doing since he was like a really little kid. So what I kind of will get into later is his meditation and how he relates to meditation, I think is in how he performs more so than how he sings. Um, and why I picked him is very similar to you. He is an artist that not many people would say is like a meditative artist necessarily, but to me, he's always brought me, comfort and he's been a relaxing and like he can put me into a headspace where I can meditate. A lot of his music, I think.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Put in like the different aspects of his performance like into the assignment, and
Hmm.
I think that'll work out well.
Yeah, and I think like it'll be interesting to kind of go into like how they've like put you into that state of mind before as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Mhm.
um yeah, you can move on to the next segment if you'd like.
All right, so I was thinking that we start with the contemplative process.
Yeah.
Um, For me, like slow dive, I've looked like done some research into them about meditation, and they've not been known to publicly practice like formal meditation, but their
Mhm.
creative process is contemplative, sorry. Um, just like the genre that they have, which is called shoegaze, it's built on techniques that like
Mhm.
quiet the mind,
Yeah.
like with the blurred vocals and then the long like reverb. It gives like the listener a sense of immersion and yeah, it pulls you into like a single focus, like just focusing on the music, and that's pretty much what meditation does too, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Um, what did you find in particular? Like, did you find anything? What would you say from them? Is there a specific, like a specific piece that brings you into that type of meditative mindset?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually was reading this article, and this article backs me up on this too. So they have an album called Everything Is Alive, and there's a
Okay.
review from The Heights. It says it's more of a contemplative album by
Mhm.
McNeil,
Okay.
and that's like the person that wrote the article there.
Yeah.
And the specific song from that album is that I really like is A Life. And when I listen to that song, it kind of brings me into a meditative state.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that album and that song in particular is like a very good definition of their contemplative process.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I would say because mine isn't too much about the music itself, but I would say like a song from Michael Jackson that puts me in that sort of space is the song Earth Song, if you know which one that is. It's like I don't know, I'm not gonna sing it, but you might know which one it is. It's the video that has him like holding the world together and um yeah. So what I analyzed and what I was looking into, the pieces from him that I looked into was I looked at his dancing. So I looked at and I what what I was doing with it is I was finding the flow state in what Michael Jackson does. And we were just kind of going over that over the last couple weeks here. Um, so I said that like what we learned from, and I have to try to make sure I pronounce this name correctly because it's uh Sidsev Ilmaihi. I didn't quite get that right. It's a name that I can't quite pronounce. But there's another quote, and it says, John Kabat-Zinn defined mindfulness as the awareness that rises through not paying attention in a particular way on purpose. And that was in Clayton Micallef's Now About Meditation. And what I kind of believe is that Michael Jackson trained himself in a similar way to like athletes and like martial artists do. Um, and I think I spoke about this earlier on in the class about how I find that like specifically martial arts is like you're making meditation take a physical form. And it's something that's like you're moving and it's with fluid movements. And I kind of cross that over to his dancing and stuff. So the three things that I think that he entered a flow state when he would do were his moonwalk, that lean that he would do sometimes where he'd kind of go down like this, and then just his spins. And the spins are because that's a very common thing in martial arts. And like I'm a martial artist myself, so I think that there's just so much that goes into that performance that you wouldn't be able to perform if you were actively thinking about it. It would just be too overwhelming. So that's why I think people were always so blown away by the stuff that he did, is because he was actively entering a flow state every time.
I agree. I actually had a bit on flow state myself for Slowdive here. So I was like writing down here that like especially in their early tracks, like you kind of just like fall into them without realizing it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of just like you just get into their music without really realizing it, and that can bring on like a flow state too, just from like the
Yeah.
listener listening to their music.
Yep.
And yeah, like later on, I feel like you can kind of hear their vocals a little more clear, and it maybe not as much um bring it into like the inducing the flow state, but for sure in a lot of their works it definitely does.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I asked if there was a song that puts you into like a meditative state. I'll ask you two questions. What's a song that you think like they were in a flow state? And what's another one that puts you into a flow state?
Okay, yeah, I guess I didn't really cover that. I kind of just talked about the contemplative state before that.
I'm just
And
curious because like
yeah,
it can kind of like tell who you are as a person, like what puts you into those states and stuff like that.
yeah, for sure. I think honestly, like the song that I feel like they were in like the flow state for is is Richard. It's one of their like unreleased tracks, and
Okay.
they didn't like go over the song a lot of times and get it mastered. Like a lot of times with artists, they'll work on the same song and do it like so
Hmm.
many times. But with this song, it's kind of just they just did it a few times,
Hmm.
and I feel like there's like more like raw emotion with that song and
Yeah,
kind of just
definitely.
yeah, just like bringing them into the flow state. And for me, I would honestly think like the same song because I can kind of like feel the emotions of the artist when I'm listening to it, and that helps to
Mm-hmm.
bring me into a flow state. And what about for Michael Jackson?
A flow state that I think when I think he was in a flow state, I would say if you ever heard the song Diana, it's like one of
Oh
his
yeah, yeah,
more
for sure.
famous ones. I think that one like because it's got such a rock vibe to it, and that's not something that was normally him. So it's kind of out there. And like what we learned about the flow state is that like there was that graph, right? And it's like when your skill meets a challenge that's like just slightly over your skill level, but enough for you to be able to like surpass it. And that's when you enter that flow state. So I would say like trying something out of his comfort zone would put like him into that flow state while he's making that song. And then the one that puts me into a flow state would be Man in the Mirror, just because of how like symbolic and meaningful the words and like the atmosphere of the song are. Um, that's what I would
You
say.
know.
Um, I'm
Um,
curious. What were you gonna say?
oh, I was just gonna say I had a question for you here.
What's up?
I know we've been talking about like the idea of process in class
Yeah.
and relating that to contemplative traditions. Like, how would you like interpret Michael Jackson's process?
So I read a thing and I wrote this down, but I wasn't able to cite it because like it's like a urban legend. But Michael
Okay.
Jackson was very like superstitious a little bit. And so he, well, at least what I've heard, had dreams, and he would have dreams where God would come to him with music, and he would tell him like, you got to wake up and make this song right now, or I'm gonna give it to somebody else.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how true that necessarily is. Like I said, it's kind of just an urban legend, but even if it's not true, like he was a pretty spiritual guy, like in general, so I feel like it kind of like has some merit. And I think that like his creative process would probably be something like that, because like he went on record quite a few times talking about like well, like there's like his advocating that he did for like different people all over the world. And all of those type of things. So he was very like I like to say what I wrote, and I just made this up, but I think it's a really good way to explain him as a person. It's that he saw the world as art, and he was a very spiritual person, so like he was able to just kind of like how a painter sees a canvas, right? Like you can just make anything with it. Like that's how he saw the world, and he would turn that into his music and his performances. And
Yeah.
so his creative process was like it would have started very internally, definitely. What about theirs?
Just like their way of like making music, like all like the different layerings, all the different pedals and stuff like that. It definitely like makes you kind of just think a little more about like how they kind of like grew to have this style and make this type of music.
Hmm.
And like their music itself, it feels like a process just because of all like the different things that you're hearing
Yeah.
when it's going on. And with the relating that to like the contemplative traditions, like process can be slow
Hmm.
and like or it can be like focused in the present, and a lot of their music feels like it was like focused on like in the present, like
Yeah.
especially that song I was talking about before, like Richard, definitely that song since it's like a demo.
Yeah.
um that song definitely was like
It's hard to get into, and you can't try to put yourself there. That was actually something that I talked about on this thing here for Michael Jackson is like I feel like what he did at the height of his fame was he like almost weaponized that flow state. Like he created circumstances every single day that would allow him to enter that state again by
yeah.
like performing in crazy places, doing dance moves that had never been done before, and like all of these like difficult situations that he would put himself into where you would kind of on a stage that big, it's like if you don't do it right, like you could really damage your image and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's like with Slowdive, I feel like they pretty much kept the same like style throughout like their career. It could be like their later stuff could be considered more like slowcore music
Hmm.
rather than shoegaze, some of their newer stuff. But yeah, I feel like Michael Jackson definitely is one of those artists that even though he's switched the styles for a few songs, that it's like he still does a very well, like good job at doing that. Like I noticed some artists like when they try and switch the style of their songs, they just completely just fall off and
Hmm.
they're not able to do that other style as well as their old one.
Yeah. And then like I think that one of the coolest things about art in general, like not it doesn't even have to just be music, is that like and I thought about this because I like my person I'm talking about is Michael Jackson, but like meditation and like these processes and like how it looks to everyone is so different that like it was actually hard for me to pick who I was going to do for this because like meditation can look like so many different things and like these practices that apply. What I thought of, like the first thing that came to mind when we were given this assignment is I thought of musicians like The Weeknd or anybody who it's a very common thing for musicians to exercise right before they go out on stage at concerts. And I would argue that that is them not necessarily maybe entering that flow state sometimes,
Yeah.
but more so like grounding themselves and getting themselves ready. Like that is their meditation process before they go out on the stage is, lifting weights and doing whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that as well. I was also wondering if did you have any more like articles that talk more about like the contemplative state of Michael Jackson? Because I had another one that I wanted to mention here.
Let's see if I can find it here. Um, okay. So this is a quote from Michael Jackson himself, and I'll pull up real quick. I'll pull it up on my phone so that it doesn't stop recording. Um, Michael Jackson. Yeah. Um, so this is a quote from him. MJ will be my new name. No more Michael Jackson. And then he signed it MJ. And I guess that's kind of like a little bit ironic because I've been calling him Michael Jackson this whole time. But like MJ is something really different. And I that's what he became when he kind of went into superstardom. And I think that that quote from himself speaks a lot on how would I say this? Like in a spiritual sense, the process of like breaking something down and like reconstructing it.
Yeah, for sure. Like kind of just like making a new name for himself and like
Yeah, and it's like that that part that connects to your identity and who you are is expressed through your art. And there's a lot
yeah.
of like other stuff with Michael Jackson that's like he didn't necessarily choose to be an artist for a long time. Like he was made into an artist as a child. So to see him kind of come into his own, like I think that that's why people, when they look at him, they split it up into eras because when he came into his own and he he went on his 3 album run in his 20s and stuff. I think that that was all like the birth of a new person almost. Um, like in a spiritual sense, there's something that's known as ego death that happens to people
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, so you know about that. And like I would say that like that's a good example of like an ego death without needing, all the other factors that are often there.
Yeah, for sure. Like he's kind of just completely breaking away from his like old music career with the Jackson 5 and then just yeah.
Um, how do they, because I'm interested, how do they convey like what message, overall message do you take away from them like in general? Like that you can apply to your life, like from whether it's just, from like how long you've known about them or like a specific song, like what kind of if you could wrap them up, what would you say about them?
So they kind of like sing about like all different kinds of things, like some like love songs and whatnot, like stuff like that. And I feel like their music is just very like relaxing. But if you listen to the lyrics like more in depth, then kind of like each song just portrays like a deeper, like sometimes darker message than the music seems like just by listening to it if you don't pay attention to the lyrics. And
Hmm.
sometimes also with like their blurred vocals, it's sometimes like easy to interpret the words as something other than they are. But
Okay.
like you'll have to like for some of the songs you'll have to like kind of look at the lyrics
Yeah.
and then you'll realize like, oh, I thought this song was like a completely different message because I was interpreting these words as sounding like something else. And
Yep.
yeah.
So do they ever, because this is a very common, and this is just a random question. Do they ever like tackle topics of like it's kind of cliche to say, but like just like getting better or like working hard and like stuff like that, like getting through this situation, that kind of stuff, like committing to your craft, I guess.
I mean, I'd say like kind of, but like pretty much all of their music has like a deeper meaning or deeper like
Hmm.
story rather than just like
So like there's
like
like yeah, there's like a deeper story beyond the lyrics, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Well, that's
I
a whole
also
practice in and of itself, right? Sorry,
yeah,
what were you gonna say?
no, sorry. I also just wanted to add this before I forget here my other like reference here. So Spice by Pop Matters article, like Spice is like the or Spice or something. He's the
Hmm.
guy that wrote it. Um he described like their band when looking at the Slovakia album
Hmm.
as more contemplated, cohesive, and complete during that era.
Mm.
So what I got from that is like even the critics are hearing their work as contemplated and not just like the fans.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And that's
yeah.
important because it's like that's part of how they portray. So it's important that that's how it's received as well.
Yeah, for sure. I also was wondering, is there like a specific article from the class that you've related like Michael Jackson's like work to?
Yeah. It is the article. Um, it was the now about meditation. So two mindfulness and flow, two distinct states or two sides of the same coin. So we can talk about mindfulness a little bit, actually. I think that honestly, I feel like both of these artists, like here's the thing is when it comes to like writing music, you have to be mindful. Like you have to be in
Yeah,
a mindful state in order to do it. I make music myself and I've tried writing when I'm having like well, you know what? That's not necessarily true because like that flow state can happen by accident at any time.
that's true.
You might
Yeah,
say like, "Oh, I don't want to write music because I'm having a bad day," but like that song about having a bad day might be the best one you've ever written, right?
that's true. Yeah, sometimes like even if you're not feeling like writing music, um, if you just do anyways, then you can get into that kind of state that
Yeah.
makes something like
Like
good. Yeah.
there's a quote here. Here we go. So this was from Clayton Micallef on Now About Meditation. It says, I would argue that mindfulness has two layers to it. Mindfulness as a practice and mindfulness as a quality of awareness. And that's kind of what we've been learning is that like
My third source, which was the article relating to my artist, is lost in the editing process. My article is Deep Nature Play by Cornell. He talks about creativity as play, and he mentions that play is a conscious discipline with self chosen rules. He also mentions that in play, you act above your daily behavior. And to me, that's exactly how Slowdive's music feels. It makes you think above your conscious thoughts to find the deeper message in their music. I think that comparing our artists helped me to see that the contemplative practice isn't just one like specific thing. Um, like Slowdive shows that how their sound can be contemplative through their process and flow, and even like without formal meditation. And with Michael Jackson, he has like a different contemplative practice by like changing his style and changing his like
Like his identity.
yeah, like his identity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should redo that again. I'll write
Redo
down
it.
like one for Michael Jackson.
I'll do the one for Michael Jackson. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just say the first part and then you say the one about Michael Jackson.
Sounds good.
Okay, right on. I think that comparing our artists has helped me to see that the contemplative practice isn't just one like specific thing. Slowdive shows how the sound can be contemplative through their process, flow, and even without their formal meditation. And with Michael Jackson,
Yeah, with Michael Jackson, it's honestly so similar. Like it's interesting because we picked such different artists and we looked at them so differently, but we came to the same conclusion that these practices and these meditative like methods can take so many different forms and it how it both affects people and how it affects the person who's like doing it is entirely dependent on who that person is and what they choose to turn it into. Um,
yeah,
so
right on.
in conclusion, they are very alike in that sense, despite being very different, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank
sweet.
you.
That was already half an hour.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you
pretty good.
for doing this with me.
Yeah,
And
you too.
I will
Yeah.
stop the recording now.
All right.